Hi, welcome everyone. We're so glad to have you join us today. I want to introduce myself. I'm Leslie Fernung, Director of Lifelong Learning at the Purdue for Life Foundation. So what is the Purdue for Life Foundation, you might ask? Well, we work with alumni from all across the country and the world to engage you in different activities here on campus and abroad. For example, we've got lifelong learning opportunities such as this one. We've got travel opportunities, game watches through alumni clubs. We even have affinity networks. So lots of different ways that we can engage and get alumni to stay connected, come back to campus, and take part in all the activities that we have. So today we welcome back to campus 5 alumni that have made consulting their career choice. They're going to share their stories and help you determine if consulting is right for you. I'm going to introduce 2 of our 5 panelists at this time. First, Chris Taylor. Chris received her master's degree from Purdue in 1996. In 2004, she launched her own company called Evergreen Leadership to help good leaders become great leaders. She is a speaker, author, trainer, and coach. She is the author of 2 books, Owning It and The Leader's Guide to Turbulent Times. Next, please welcome Katie McNamee. Katie founded her own business called Elevate Online in 2016. She is passionate about helping small businesses build meaningful relationships with their customers. What's really special about Chris and Katie's relationship is they took the best of both of their worlds and combined them to co-found a business together that they call Leap Consulting. Their mission is to help people launch successful consulting businesses. Today, they're going to be sharing their stories and introducing you to 3 Purdue alumni that started in different industries, but have since all launched their very own consulting businesses. Before I turn the program over to them, I would just like to share that we intend for today's session to be an open and honest discussion. So please, if you have questions during the workshop today, jump in. Ask questions. If you're online joining us, please use the chat feature, and we'll make sure and get your questions addressed by the panelists today. So with that, I'm going to turn the program over to Chris, who will introduce the rest of our panelists for today's session. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. It is always wonderful to be with Purdue folks and Boilermakers, and I'm especially grateful today to have 5 Boilermakers join me. The goal today is really to tap into the wisdom that sits at this table. Each of us have our own independent consulting careers, and this is a group that will give you some pretty straight up answers to any questions that you have. So we're going to do some introductions so you get a sense of who's on this panel with me. And then we've got a series of 4 or 5 questions that I'll pose to the panelists. But as Leslie had said, if you've got questions, put them in chat, and we will answer them either real time if they're related to the part of the conversation that we're having, or at the end. So ask away, because you're going to get some really, really helpful things today. So as Leslie mentioned, my business is Evergreen Leadership. I co-partner with Katie with Elevate Online, but we also have 3 special guests joining us. And one of the things that Leslie didn't mention is there's a connection between the 5 of us as well, is that we are all members of a group of consultants in the central Indiana area called Apeiron. And what we found is that we can do better work together, and it's helpful when you're out on your own to have some other people to help walk that journey with you and to seek opportunities to find work together. So we've got that connection. You may hear some of that in our answers or in some of our chatter back and forth. So I'm going to start and have Brian introduce himself, and then Bob and Nicole. But share with us, Brian, and then Bob, and then Nicole, what's your Purdue connection? And then what is your independent consulting business, and how long have you been at it?
Thanks, Chris. Hello, everybody. So I'm Brian Landis. I got my 2 Purdue degrees in December of '83. It's kind of a long story, but bachelor's in industrial engineering and Krannert Scholar in the MSA program at Krannert at the same time. I'm on my 4th career. So first career was about 20 years in Fortune 500 business. I worked for IBM, Detroit Diesel, and Alcoa over that period. Second career was with Accenture. Retired as a partner there, then went to Butler and spent about 13 years running a consulting group out of the Lacey School of Business there, and then have been on my own for about 3 years. So my company is Encourage Consulting, really 5 practice areas: business strategy, succession planning, org development, project management, and then operations and supply chain.
Thanks, Brian. Mr. Hayden.
Hi, my name is Bob Payton. I'm the owner of the Growth Coach of North Indianapolis. I am a Purdue MET grad, Bachelor of Science of MET, which is now Polytechnic, of 1990, which, okay, I'm a little farther behind you. That's okay, right? But short histories, long-time aerospace guy, 20 plus years in aerospace, and then went off on my own in consulting. And in the last 3.5 years, I've ended up in business coaching, where we focus on strategy and execution. So, is that it? Yep.
Hi, I'm Nicole Gebhardt. So I am a Purdue wife. I'm a Purdue grad, and I have 2 daughters at Purdue right now. So we bleed black and gold at our home. I graduated from Purdue with a degree in what was technical graphics. It's now the CGT department inside of Polytechnic. So I'm also a recovering corporate girl. So I worked at Caterpillar for 12 years before I ventured out and launched my own consulting company. And today I have a publishing company. We work with business leaders to help them plan, write, publish, and promote their book for their business.
Cool. And I will speak into my journey just a bit, and then let Katie speak into hers. 10 years in nonprofit, 14 years in a Fortune 200 company, and then in 2004, I launched Evergreen Leadership. I had the opportunity to come to Purdue and teach in the entrepreneurship program, and actually then put together a capstone course for them in consulting. And that is where I met Katie McNamee.
Wonderful. So in spring of 2016, I was in Chris's capstone consulting class and facing graduation with my degree in public relations, not really sure what came next. And so Chris offered a digital marketing internship to someone in her class. I accepted. And as part of this internship, Chris gave time back to me in helping me figure out what my next career step would be, and what we figured I was well positioned to do, thanks to the many opportunities I had while at Purdue University, was to start my own consulting business. So in 2016, I created Elevate Online, doing digital marketing and branding for consultants, entrepreneurs, and creatives. And in 2017, Chris came to me and said, you know, I really enjoyed the process of helping you build out your business. I have this deep expertise in consulting. You recently successfully stood up your business and have expertise in marketing. Let's combine to help others do the same. And so we are both very passionate about helping those who feel consulting is right for them get their businesses started swiftly, smartly, and with support.
And then a few years later, we worked with Nicole Gebhardt to produce my book, Owning It. So lots of entanglements up here. What I love about this panel is, number one, I know these folks, they're going to give you a straight answer. Number two, they're not fluff. They are doing their businesses. They are making a living doing these businesses, and they do them well. And the third thing is that you hear from these stories that some of us started right out of college. Some of us had 4 careers. This is the 4th one. We're doing different things in different places. So the goal here today is give you a broad purview. So my first question to everybody, and I think it's a question you should always start with, is why? Why did you choose to take this path of going out on your own, figuring it out, starting your own business? Because it's not for the faint of heart. So in no particular order, but as something comes to you, why in the heck are you doing this?
I've had the mic handed to me. You know, so I'm the typical mom journey, right? I got to the point that in my career that I had an option. I was labeled inside of Caterpillar as high potential. I was being groomed for the executive office, and at the same time, it was time for me to start having babies. And I made the most difficult decision that I've probably ever made. And I got actually a chance to be, this is my fun fact, I was Caterpillar's first official ever work-from-home employee. And I got to do that for 2 years. There you go, fun fact. I got to do that for 2 years while I had baby number 1, and then when baby number 2 was born, I left my career, and that was one of the hardest things. And then I just started freelancing and building my own business, because I'm on a, you know, there's a number of you that are listening to this, like, I couldn't not do it. That was the bottom line. I had to be home with my babies, and then I had to do something meaningful and purposeful. And so my business was born out of that desire just to contribute and continue contributing.
I'll play off that. So I had a good 20-year career, but I found in year 19 that it just wasn't enjoyable anymore. I didn't feel like I was contributing the way I wanted to. I probably felt like a ugly duckling in the midst of a lot of things, whether that be culturally or whatever. And so I remember coming home and telling my wife that I wanted to quit a perfectly good corporate job. And she thought I was nuts. So that similar journey, but different circumstances. But I think I've learned over the years that it's because I tend to buck everybody else's system except my own. And so it's a strength and a weakness. But the real reason was to control my own destiny in some ways, which we will talk about as we go. I'm sure that has its ups and downs. So for sure. But to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it with whom I want to do it with was a big factor. So.
Yeah, I'll just add briefly that I'm not probably as bold as these two. In my case, it was an outsourcing move on a part of a company, but and there is definitely a mindset involved. I never dreamed at 60 I would have no salary, no paid vacation, and no health insurance. But I will say that it's worked out great, and I've been very blessed to have done it. So as I look back on it, I'm really glad that it worked out the way it did.
So Katie, your
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, what's amazing is, even though I was in such a different place in my life, it was really for the same motivating factors of wanting freedom and wanting control that I decided to step right into independent consulting. Like I said, I was looking at jobs, I was applying to some things, and nothing really felt right. It was just that feeling of something was missing. This wasn't what I really wanted to step into. But when Chris started describing to me what my consulting business could be like and how I could shape my life around it and really build a career I loved, that really spoke to me. And so I became very passionate about building Elevate in a way that allowed me to, at that time, travel, then eventually let me move across the country and take all my clients with me. And then I brought them all back to Indiana when I came here. And so it's just been such a great blessing to have that freedom and ability to really shape the type of work I want to do, who I want to work with, and actively step into that.
And my story has some similar themes with this organization for 14 years. It was good until it wasn't. And there was a point at which leadership had changed from the top down, going through a merger and acquisition. And I went from loving the work I was doing to crying on my way to work every single day. And for me, it was the draw of the work that I was doing, and I wanted to continue to do it, and I knew I wasn't going to have the chance in this new organization. And I thought, I think somebody might pay me to do this work somewhere else. And I didn't have a plan. I didn't have any of the things we would recommend. And I said to my husband, at this point, I'm the wage earner in my family. And I said to my husband, I really think I'm going to leave and start on my own. And he looks me squarely in the eye and he says, go do what you need to do. And I started to cry. And I said, don't you even want to know what it is? And he's like, no, I trust you. Go do what you need to do. And so that was 18 years ago, and I've gone and done what I wanted to do and reinvented myself a couple times, so it's been good for me. But I will say, and this leads into our next question, is as I was leaving, I had about 45 days between when I gave my notice and when I left the organization. All the people who were thinking they were looking out for me would kind of corner me in the hallway and say, why are you taking this big of a risk? Why are you walking away from a paycheck and vacation and healthcare benefits? And so my next question for the panel is this: just how risky is it? Yeah.
Can I speak to that?
You can speak to that.
If we're still live. I had literally people stand at my office window looking at me like I was a zoo animal. I mean, and I'm not kidding. It's like, are you, and then I had other people who would say, I can't believe I can't believe you're so gutsy, right? And I didn't think I really was at that time, but maybe I was. But the risk question for me was I'd survived 5 global downsizings in 20 plus years. And I'd read E-Myth, I think, at that time. I'd talked to several people that own their own businesses and maybe mentally made the final decision that I felt the risk of going on my own was less, even though scary, than staying in a corporate job. And while that hasn't been without its, again, ups and downs, I don't regret that decision at all. At least I have control to a certain extent over what I do versus other people controlling it. So that's, and I think what I wrote down when you asked us to prime for that question was it is a mental question of risk in your head that you have to either get over or you won't get over. And if you can't get over it, then I would not recommend it. And that's a tough thing to do. And I've had clients, I've had 2 in the last 5 years where I've recommended, even after ownership, to not be an owner because they can't take the risk equation. So, yeah.
Yeah, two thoughts, I think. First of all, as Bob said, it is a mindset shift. And just being good at what you do isn't enough necessarily to be able to succeed as an independent. There's that whole ability to sell and market what you do and network and build relationships and so forth. So those kind of skills, I think, are at somewhat of a premium. It certainly helps to have a network of people that you can band together with, that you can together go find work and build relationships and so forth. Chris mentioned Apeiron. That's part of what is helpful for us, and it's been huge. I think the other thing is that, depending on your skill set, if you have a skill set that has a clear value proposition for business owners, it's a lot easier to go forward with that. If I'll just use an example, if it's something like, I can help people present well. Well, most business owners think they present pretty well, whether they do or not. So, that's a little bit harder to sell. But if it's something that has clearly demonstrated value, and you can show that, and you've done that for clients, be they internal or external, then probably you can be successful.
Any other thoughts on risk?
I'll just say that part of why I started Elevate right out of college was I knew my risks were relatively low at that time. I was on my parents' health insurance, and health insurance is one of the largest things that folks have to consider if they're making this transition and they're the primary insurance holder in their family. And I also knew my cost of living would probably never be that low. I was able to move home with my parents and save money. And then once I landed that first client, make the transition to living in Indianapolis to build out Elevate online. But I just felt like I had that opportunity. I had Chris's support. And because of those things, I was able to kind of manage and weather the smaller risks that I had at that time in my life. So it was an intentional choice to do it then because I knew, why not now? It's only going to get harder potentially from here.
Yeah, it probably gets just a little scarier. Yes. Yeah. A little bit more at stake. Yeah, absolutely.
I did it at 40, and so I did it because I didn't want to be 50.
Yeah.
And do it. I literally remember having those conversations in my head that I wanted to make that start when I was 40 because I didn't want to do it at 50. In my case, I was the primary breadwinner. Not that my wife was working, but it was majority of our income. But I had 2 young kids as well. Same equation is, okay, they're young, they're not teenagers at that point, and that makes a big difference. It's it's back to the risk equation.
So without a doubt, I think we all would say there's some risk. There have been times I've had lots of income and other times it's a little thinner. There have been times I thought I had big engagements nailed and they went away. So there are some risks. But clearly, I wouldn't have done this for 18 years guaranteed, or any folks here 6 years, or you've got me, Nicole, by a year, I think 19. We wouldn't do it if there weren't some rewards. So I'd love for people to speak into what sustains you. The rewards for me, I started thinking the reward will be doing this work I really want to do. And that still rings true, but I've found so many other rewards in doing this work over time. So speak a little bit into yeah, it's risky, but here's some of the rewards.
Well, for me, it was really the importance of me being at home with my kids. That's what started it, right? And so the rewards, they grow up so fast, but I can look back and I was there every day. And so that was a decision that, I wanted a no regrets life, and I wanted to be there for them. And so the reward has been my kids. They've had me as a role model, that they've seen me build my business and struggle and work at something when I didn't have to. And they see me go down and start work at, at 8 in the morning when I don't have to, and work till 5. So being that role model for them has been important to me, and the value of that, it's really, and me being there has been one of the greatest rewards.
I'll go ahead and go. A couple of things. One is variety. I don't know about a lot of you, but I get bored easily. So I love having I've got maybe a donut shop in the morning I work with, and then a law firm, and then a marketing firm at the end of the day. And business is business in the end, but the variety I've found keeps me engaged. And then what I'll call the light bulb moments of ownership or leadership, when those things happen from an outside perspective versus what we're used to being inside, that's definitely what gets you up in the morning, to watch that change happen. And I was telling actually Katie before I came in here, the smaller clients, I'll call it, maybe 10 to 30 employees, where they make change extremely fast, I've found to be really rewarding. Nothing wrong with my larger clients, but they are slower. The change is harder. And so from a, benefit standpoint, and then honestly, somewhat being in a little more control of your own schedule. Now the clients do dictate that, so don't kid yourself. However, being able to take off a Friday afternoon and go play golf, and not feel guilty about it, and have it be a mix of both business and pleasure and those kind of things, it's really big. And then same as Nicole's, as my kids grew up, I traveled early in my corporate career 2 weeks out of the month, and not having to do that now is fantastic. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, Bob. There has never been a better time to do this. All of us understand how the world of work has changed with the pandemic and so forth, and I can echo the thing about travel. 22 countries in 7 years with Accenture, and it can get old. And last year I did a project that involved a plant in China and a company in South Carolina, and I did most of it from home. So it's amazing how all of that has changed. And, it's easier now to start a business than it's ever been, and it's easier to do work with lots of people in different places than it's ever been. And so I think those are great benefits to doing something like this. I would add one more thing to what has already been shared, and that is, so I'm kind of the gray beard, I guess, on the panel here, and so thinking about what's coming in a few years. And one of the things that surprised me is that retirement is no longer a cliff; it's now a ramp. And so, when you work for an employer and you retire on a date, and that's that. But what I've realized is with my own business, I can sculpt that any way I want. I believe in a concept called rewirement, where the next chapter of life is just that. It's a chance to do more things that I didn't have time to do when I was working 60 hours a week. And so to be able to slide into that, to run my business as long as I want to, full time, but then to be able to back that down in stages and ramp up some other things that are important to me, that's been an unexpected surprise.
Yeah, I'll just add, freedom, flexibility, being able to shape both my days and my years has obviously been one of the most rewarding aspects of this. I think in addition to what's been mentioned, one thing I really love is that I am a lifelong learner. I love to learn new skills to better the skills that I already have. And I think as a consultant, like part of bringing value to your clients is continually updating your skills and bringing new things to them. So I've really loved being able to actively pursue learning opportunities and then take that and apply that to new clients, and also be able to follow areas where I'm passionate and interested in certain things to overall shape a career that I really love and am passionate about, and doing work that I want to do with the clients that I choose to work with.
Yeah, and I'm going to say yes.
Yes.
You know, like time to spend with my daughter when she had twins and be with my parents at the end of their life. My corporate career, every 3 years I was bored and I would reinvent myself. And I don't, you know, I keep reinventing myself, but my business just keeps getting better as a result instead of that complete thing. The freedom and flexibility, because I spend part of my time here in Indiana, part of my time in North Carolina, and that all works just perfectly well. And then that idea of, you know, people keep bugging me and say, when are you going to retire? And like, why would I retire? You know, like, I love what I'm doing. I love the people I work with, both clients and the peers that I have at my sides. I'm doing the work I want to do. I've got great control over how it, like, why would I do that? Yeah. So lots of rewards. Now, the question that's harder, but it's a question that everybody asks when they're thinking about it, is what, in your estimation, and this is going to be one of those, it depends on a lot of things, but if you had to advise somebody on what the income potential was, this is a hard one. And we all are just going to speak into our own experience. And I'm not asking you to reveal your salaries, but, you know, what are the factors that go into the, you know, really there's no upper limit, right, Nicole? You could earn $1 bazillion if you played it right. And yet many people go out of business after just a year or two. So when people are thinking about income potential, what advice would you give them? Brian's got something.
Yeah, so first of all, just in context, I've been doing consulting for 29 years. So when I started my business, it wasn't a new thing for me. It was just doing it from a different platform. But what I realized was that I was probably giving away a substantial amount of my profits to an employer. And by starting my own business, I was able to keep those. I've made more every year that I've been in independent than I ever did working for someone. The second year of my business, I think I made about twice what I did the first year. And so I would say the potential there is probably 150 to 300% of what you were making. Now, the caveat is that, again, you have to be good at marketing and selling what you do, and having a network where you can develop those relationships with potential clients. So there's a whole piece there around marketing, and some of these folks know a whole lot about that. But that's the key.
Okay, good answer.
I'll go. A lot of people I've talked to in the past always use their current salary and start doing the math.
Yeah.
Right? Divide that by how many hours I want to work, and that'll be my rate. And there's nothing wrong per se with that as a benchmark. But to Brian's point, it's not your value, right? Your value could be less than that. It could be more than that. And as he just said as well, you have to sell. I'm an introvert. Everybody knows this. I'm sweating as we speak, right? Just knowing that somebody's actually listening. But you have to sell, and sell isn't just marketing, it's closing, right? It's actually getting someone to agree to write you a check. And in the end, until that check is written or that payment's in your deposit in your bank, the rest of it's all nice and fluffy. And so I usually guide people to tell them that if they're asking that question, I'm not sure it's the right question. You must be prepared. I usually recommend 6 months, right? Type of number, maybe a year, because it depends on what you do and how you do it, and who you're doing it for will depend on that income and when it shows up. Same way with Brian. In my case, I've made less, I've made more. It's very lumpy, it can be, and so you just have to be prepared for that. But it's more about your value more than what you used to make. So.
That's a great way to frame
I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was just count on it taking longer and costing more than you thought it was going to. Amen. Yeah. So I'm fortunate on two behalves. Number one, my husband was the breadwinner of the family, and we brought me home with the first priority to take care of our kids. And the other factor for me is I'm not profit motivated. So I'm impact and meaning motivated. So I only really, the first 10 years I was really good at breaking even. And so I was quite happy. And so I'm pretty excited now that we've kind of cracked the income and the profit code. And I figured out, how to scale and how to really make some good, meaningful income out of this. But that was never an agenda for me.
I'd say, yeah, from like a really practical look at it, I know that I have earned or out-earned, fellow peers who went directly into like marketing careers. I can compare like what I was applying to even what I made within my first year and know that what I made at Elevate was more than that. I just hit my first six-figure year last year, which was really exciting for me, and so hoping to continue that beyond. And if not, I've built out that nest egg to be able to weather whatever may come. So I would, I guess, just reiterate the importance of having that financial safety net, as we call it, if and when you are making that transition, and also figuring out the ways to manage both the marketing and selling cycle with the actual doing of the work to kind of help best position yourself for a steady income. And there are ways to do that, like through structuring your service offerings.
Yeah, yeah. We talk about this a lot at LEAP. We call it the snail on the rail because you get excited because you sold an engagement and the money may not come for another 6 or 8 months. By the time you get to agreement and they write the PO and it goes through procurement and then they're net 90 and you've got to deliver a little bit before you invoice. So there is income flex up and down. There's sometimes income uncertainty. There's also, we talk in LEAP about the sell-do cycle. Like the trap that people fall into is they're selling and then they land the work and then they're doing and they don't think about selling when they're doing. And both Nicole can help you with that and Katie can help you with that a lot because you do have to get smart about marketing and figuring out how to manage a pipeline. So there's lots of what ifs in this whole piece. But, I would say for me, I have earned substantially more than I would have had I stayed in a corporate role and at the same time had all those other advantages that we talked about. Which the more I look at my peers in those industries, the more they would say they don't have those things. So we suspect that as we've talked about this, you might be saying, well, that sounds pretty daggone good. Like, what should I do to get started? So we've got Brian, that's probably the newest out of the gate, followed by Katie, and Nicole and I have been doing it a little bit longer. But advice to people, if they're thinking about doing this, what are some things? There's a lot of things, so we can talk about this for a long time. What are some things they should consider if they're getting started?
I'll go. Make sure you have a supportive partner, and whether that's spouse, otherwise, etc. Don't make that decision on your own. Would be one, and really vet out that decision and make sure that's the correct one for you. 2, evaluate yourself. Absolutely deep core. Do you have the wherewithal to do this? It is not for everybody. And understanding yourself to the deepest extent possible is part of that. And then 3rd is honestly, it's are you financially prepared? It's just that's just the reality. And so you don't necessarily have to worry about that in a corporate career until obviously an end comes. So, but you still have bills to pay. The mortgage still has to get paid. The kids go to college. They get braces. Those things are real. So I think making sure you take those things into account, at least up front, before you just make a snap decision is important. So.
Brian?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. One is if you're able to manage sort of a fluid transition, it's helpful. Not everybody can do that, but if you're really good at what you do, oftentimes there are people that will agree to let you do that for them and also let you moonlight on the side and do some work for yourself. And so if you can begin by doing something like that, I know we had a lady in our network who decided to go independent and told her employer, and she was desperately needed on a Salesforce project that they were working on, so they agreed to give her a contract for a number of months, and she was able to get started with a base load of business. I was able to do the same thing, take some contracts with me when I went independent, and it made all the difference. So I would say that's one. If you're thinking about doing this, I often talk about business owners buy three things. So they buy a name, and so you need to do some thinking about how do you create that name for yourself. If you're with PwC or Deloitte or someone, you walk in with that name. When you're on your own, you have to build that presence. And so whether that's through LinkedIn or speaking engagements or whatever, writing books, whatever you do, you have to develop that name. Secondly is people buy a track record. They buy credentials. And so if you've been really good at delivering a service, figure out how you can put that into a case study. People want to see that you've done this before. And it's not just your words, but you can actually demonstrate the value that you've created for businesses. And so having those case studies is really helpful. And then finally, a methodology. Again, buyers, they want more than just a haphazard success. They want to be confident that you can do this repeatedly over and over again. So having some kind of a methodology that you can show. Some people, I think, believe that that's giving away your intellectual property. On the contrary, it's demonstrating to buyers that you have confidence in what you do.
I'm going to flip the script a little bit and talk about LEAP and the two of you and and this book, because if you're really considering it, this book is brilliant. Chris is just an outstanding writer and presenter on this topic, and how you've laid it out in this book and the risks and the ideas and the questions and the self-analysis is brilliant. So if you're really considering this, get the book. And then the next thing is you don't want to do this alone, and LEAP is there. Katie and Chris really can walk you through a journey on how do you set yourself up for success. I know I look back at when I left Caterpillar, the one thing that I didn't understand and I didn't have a coach who was guiding me on was like I needed referrals and I needed a network, because I went home and for about 4 or 5 years I was I kind of disappeared, and then when I reemerged, all of the referrals that I had in the network I had inside of Caterpillar had moved on or retired. And I was suddenly I'm starting at ground zero, and I had to prove myself and start from that. So, and the third aspect I'll say about that is that's one of the things we do. So Brian mentioned publishing. So that you do need some sort of credibility, especially if you're doing a pivot in your career, because everybody inside of your corporation knows who you are. But when you're on your own, it's tough. And so when we work with authors, sometimes we are helping them launch either a total independent career or a new business. And so we look at publishing as a strategy to help give you the credibility and the authority you need to work into that space.
Can I talk to that real quick?
You can, absolutely.
Primarily when I left, I had a national and global network of people, which was fantastic. I still do, right? But when you shift, depending on what your business is, I learned, unfortunately, the hard way that I didn't know anybody locally, right? Really, when you got down to it, and that was a big deal. That was a lot of painful learning of, well, I can't leverage that anymore because it doesn't translate to the local business who's 2 miles down the road from me. He doesn't know me, and I was a big OEM guy and those kind of things, and I had to overcome that barrier. So, another factor to think about.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nicole, for starting off our LEAP talk. That's a little bit what I was going to talk about here as well. Because my first piece of advice and what we would suggest at LEAP is to really get strategic about your transition into consulting. And so one way we help people do that is through our Launch Series course. It's a 6-session, fully recorded, go at your own pace course where you learn Biz 101, the 10 steps to starting your own consulting business. So it really gives you a long-term view at what this is going to look like. And then we help you articulate your value proposition. I think Brian mentioned value proposition and making sure you're approaching the marketplace with from a place of what value are you providing to your clients. And so we help you get clear on what services you might provide. And then the next step, and kind of in parallel with that, is who is your ideal client? And as a result of these first 3 lessons, you get a really practical one-page business plan. You start to lay the foundation for your business. And in the back half of the course, for the last 3 lessons, we talk about how is it that you network. We've heard again and again how important a network is as an independent consultant. How do you market? So we give you practical tools for putting together your own marketing plan and help you think about your name that you might want to build for yourself and your branding. And then the last lesson is on how to sell your services, which can be a really important piece once you make all those networking meetings and build those relationships. How is it that you transition into selling work to a client? So if you're looking to get that really solid strategic foundation, which is what we would recommend, that is through the Launch Series course with Leap. And then we also, I would say, get support. Support is such an important piece as you're navigating this transition from either your corporate career or college into consulting. You're most likely leaving behind a place of comfort and a place where like you had your network well established and you had your coworkers, and so now you can really go out and create that. And so one way that you can get support is through the Prosper community at Leap. We meet virtually every month to provide accountability. We walk people through both professional and business development and have a library of resources for you. So those are 2 really key ways that people can engage with Leap specifically. And if you want to learn more about that, you can do that at leaprightnow.biz/PAA. We have a special deal for Purdue where you're getting 50% off the Launch Series and 2 free months of Prosper. So really a way that you can start exploring and lay the foundation for your consulting business now if this is something that you're interested in.
Say that URL one more time.
Yeah, leaprightnow.biz/PAA. So that's just for our Purdue folks.
Yes, yes. And, I look down this table and I say you just need to surround yourself with really good people because they make the difference. Part of the philosophy with Leap is get smart in how to do business because you've got your marketable expertise. You have to ask the question of what value does it add and how, is it marketable or not? But you've got to have this amazing network around you. And if there's one gift that I haven't talked into, it's that I have, over the course of the years, just gifted to walk with lots of talented people to do work together, to brainstorm together, to support and encourage each other. So, think about your network. And then, the last thing I would encourage you to do is do something. Like Bob says, you don't want to wake up one day and you're fill in the blank, 50, 60, whatever. And if you find yourself that you're just, like, well, I'm going to wait. Nope. Like, maybe you need to wait long enough to get a financial safety net under you or get your act together, but you've got to take action. And if you're not willing to step out and at least build into it, you don't have to do it. It's not a yes, no. Like, you can start to build into this, but you do need to take action, and you do need to be the kind of person that even on a Friday morning that's brilliant outside, you have to have your buttons the seat a little bit, right? Especially in the beginning. And so there's this freedom and flexibility, but we talk about like avoiding snow day thinking, like this idea like, oh, I don't have to go to work today, so I can go on a cruise. Oh, I can do this or that. And, you're going to work at it, and it's going to be well worth the work, but you're going to work at it. Leslie, are we seeing any questions?
Not right now.
Okay.
Yeah, there were some questions about the website, but we've got those in there for folks now.
Awesome.
So if you have questions about where to find the LEAP website, it's in the chat.
Any questions here?
I'm Joyce Miles. I'm an alum from
Welcome.
Purdue. I've outsourced and outpaced all of you together, probably. I graduated in 1965, so my career was in secondary education. I retired at age 53. So my husband said, "You aren't going to quit work, are you?" So I launched, my own consulting business. But I wondered, as you advise people to go into their own, if you use the term a personal board of directors. One of the things that I've learned in leadership training is the value of that, and I certainly had my own, and it's been in transition as I've moved from Florida to North Carolina and then back here in Lafayette. They're all virtual, so it doesn't make any difference, where I am or where they are. And I advise a lot of young professionals today in all across the spectrum of businesses, but that personal board of directors just resonates with most of them, and it certainly has held true for me. And I had a question then for Katie. Somebody can pick up on that one, but if I talk to a number of students as they get ready to launch, I'm a full-time volunteer here at Purdue working with a select group of students, and they always make me nervous when they say, "Oh, I want to be a consultant," because it's like this 22-year-old trying to sell me life insurance. You just don't have the background to convince me that you're the person. So I'm wondering, number one, if you would agree to mentor. I've got one right now. I have to think about who it is for sure. But she said the other day, "I want to be a consultant." And I'm thinking, oh dear, we need to really be serious about this. Because you don't have the track record yet.
Yeah. So, I would be happy to talk to her and happy to talk to her and learn more and speak into that. So why I decided to launch was because Chris and I realized that I had a portfolio that would help me be able to justify why I was doing this work already to potential business owners. And so that was something I really had to step into, was the practice of selling confidently and being really grounded in the value that I brought, because that was a little bit in my head as well. Was I knew people knew I was young coming in to do work with them, so I knew right off the bat I had to make an impression and establish my credibility and be able to back up the skills that I was saying I could provide for them. But I did work with Purdue Athletics while I was here. I did freelance work while I was here, building out websites, running social media, so that when I transitioned into doing that directly after college, I could point back to these different portfolio pieces and say, I've already been doing this, even though I'm a recent grad. Here are the reasons that you can trust me to be able to handle this for you. So I think that expertise piece is so key, is how is it that you establish credibility and trust and can demonstrate that you are able to do the skills that you say you can provide to a business owner. And I think another thing that really worked in my favor was I was in the space of digital marketing, which I think tends to skew younger, or business owners are looking for folks, or more willing to work with folks who are younger, specifically in the area of social media, since I grew up with it and was, able to provide insights into it that they might not have. So it's really about what is the value that you're bringing, and how is it that you can establish that credibility.
The other thing that Katie did really well was she recognized that was a barrier coming in, right from graduate to, from college to consulting. And her rates reflected that. She came in under market. Yeah. Intentionally, and continued to build out that portfolio. At least we call it you need verifiable credentials. And so I also taught, when I taught at Purdue, there would be students who would be very gung-ho about consulting. And I would say, well, what have you done in that area? Well, nothing. I've read the book. Well, reading the book isn't it, right? So they need to get verifiable credentials, right? And they need to understand that their ramp up might be a little bit slower. But she did a lot of things really smart. She brought clients with her from some engagements she was working on as an undergrad, came in under market until she built even a better portfolio. But those are interesting conversations. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Two more questions. Awesome. Two more questions from the audience. What is the best way to market on the web? And Could our panelists weigh in on S Corp versus V Corp or other recommended approaches? So, twofold question. Best way to market on the web.
I'm on the second. Go ahead. Who wants to talk into marketing?
I know Nicole would know as well. So that's such an interesting question to me, because the first thing that you need to know is who is it that you're marketing to? And so marketing on the web, there are just so many different options. And that's one thing that business owners struggle with, is there are all of these different options. So how do you know which one is the best one? And the answer is the one that will reach your ideal client. So to get a better sense of that, what I would ask you is, who is it you're trying to reach? And where are they on the internet? Are they on LinkedIn? Most of us in B2B sales will find our ideal clients on LinkedIn, and so having a presence there is recommended. Are they people who actively read blogs, or are they people who listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos? Like I said, there are just so many different methods that I would hate to say these are the 3 best ways, because I really can't. It really is so dependent on who it is you're trying to reach, and then understanding how is it that you reach into those places where they already are.
Yeah, and I was going to say was, again, I'm an introvert, so marketing is not my first love, or it wasn't. And for me personally, as an example, if anybody follows me on LinkedIn, they know I love coffee. And so I take a lot of pictures of coffee, and I know that sounds silly, and that's what I post on LinkedIn. But for me, it's a way to convey to people what I'm like, where I'm at, what I'm doing, how I work. And I honestly, would have never imagined that would be something that people would kind of connect with, but they do. And that's taken 5 years to figure that out, but how to take that and leverage it and those kind of things is a different equation, but it goes back to your value proposition, what your service is, who it's for, and if you don't know those things, I honestly wouldn't, we talked about this a little bit, I wouldn't just go off and start a website just because you're open, right? If you don't know the answer to the original 3 or 4 questions, it's throwing money, good money after bad.
Did you want to speak into that?
Well, I was going to say, you won't market if you don't like doing it, right? And so you have to find what you like doing. I ironically hate short content marketing, writing. Like, I do not like writing social media posts, and I don't like writing emails. I like long form marketing is my better approach. Chris is a brilliant content writer. Like, you have a blog on Medium that you're regular posting. Now she's going after guest articles. She loves to write short and medium form content, really. And so she'll do it all day long, right? And so you have to find, what would you really like to do? Do you like to speak? Would you rather be doing a podcast than you would writing? So you have to find what you like to do. And the other thing I'll say is, when I first started working as a consultant, I was helping people build their marketing strategy. And what I found is that a lot of people can't keep up. Like, when you have a thriving business and you're trying to manage employees and payroll and HR issues, and plus, bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan, and worry about, are the kids going to get their shots tomorrow, and all of those things in between. I started looking for answers to help my clients, and the question I asked was, what, if I had a short amount of your time, could I help you create that would last you 6 months or longer? And that's how I got started in publishing. It was like, if I can put this asset in your hand, if I can get your attention for a short amount of time and put an asset like this in your hand, and the only thing you have to do is figure out how to put it in other people's hands in order for them to understand who you are, what you do, and why you do it, so you can close the contracts, then that was, for me, the golden ticket answer. And so that's why we publish today, and why we only work with business owners, is because our passion really is solving the marketing problem for the right person.
Yeah. Amen, girl. Amen. And so, Leslie, in answer to the second question about B Corp, S Corp, LLC, how should I be formulated? I'm going to share a story, a true story. Katie was with me. We were at the Purdue Women's Conference, the very first one up in Chicago, and we were doing a workshop on, I don't know what the title was, but how to get your business started. And the handout was the 10 steps, which is the first part of our launch series. And a mother-daughter duo came in and sat down, and they were reading through them, and you saw this just stricken look on both their faces. And I went, what's wrong? And they're like, oh my goodness, we figured out what's wrong. And they had been in business for a year and a half, they hadn't gotten traction. They were really stuck. And they said, we started at the middle of this list and not at the beginning. Now, if you looked at those 10 steps, answering the question of what business entity should I be, and if I should have a website, those are middle steps, not the first steps. So the first steps are figuring out all those things that Katie just ran through. What do you want to do? Who are you going to provide those services to? What's the value you want to provide? Why is it important to them? How do you want to be, how are you going to do this business and what's the value you provide? So you answer those strategic questions. Then you ask the question of, and what's the business entity type that best serves me? And that's a conversation that you have with a small business attorney and perhaps your insurance agent. But that is not the first question. Katie kind of looked at me because I just wrote a blog about, we always get that as, is that the first thing I should do? It is not the first thing you should do. You need to do it, but lay out your strategy first.
Which goes back to your question about a board of advisors. I think that's, I mean, the answer should be you take it in front of your board, whoever that board, and if that's your accountant, your lawyer, and if you don't know who those people are, you better find them, right? Because those are ultimately it's still your decision, but surrounding yourself with people like that to help you make those decisions, you can make them on your own, but that comes with risk. So surrounding yourself with people that have been there, done that, and then can get that valuable advice is really key.
And whether you do a board of advisors or you surround yourself with people who are willing to pour into you and you pour into them, you're going to need people that help you along the way, right? I can guarantee you, I don't know how many times Nicole Gebhardt and I have gotten together with the whiteboard and figured out a strategy issue. You're going to need people you can call on. There are times, I suspect each and every one of us have had a business coach. So we not only coach, but we are coached. There are times we read, we take courses. And so you've got to continue to reinvest in yourself and your business in lots of different ways. And a board is a great way to do that. And there are lots of other ways you're going to want to tap into. But it's not like I build it and I'm done. Yeah, unfortunately.
That was a great lead into the next question that we got. In the beginning, how much of your work week do you recommend for networking? What about after you're established? So in the beginning, how much time did you give to networking, and once you're established?
So when I bought the Growth Coach, a franchise, when I bought that and started local, I would tell you we were challenged to meet 3 people a day. And I would tell you that's not enough. And I would tell, I would say up front, it's a significant investment of time. Daytime, there is no work day, by the way. It is daytime, nighttime, night events, networking, I'll call it, all those things. It is nonstop. And until you build that sales funnel and work your way through to a set of clients who are paying the bills, it doesn't stop. And then it doesn't stop anymore either. It may slow down a little bit. But up front, it's a big investment of time and energy. And it can be exhausting. It really can. But it's especially for introverts. So if you're in that crowd, trust me. But it's I would challenge you to think about 3 people a day, the next 5 days, the next 30 days, the next 60 days. Right? That's 2 cents worth.
Yeah. Katie, Brian.
Bob answered the startup question, which absolutely right. I mean, when you start a business, sales is the first thing you need. When you're getting to a little bit more steady state, one of the goals that I set for myself was 25 hours a week. I wanted to be billable. We have peer groups in a peer on, and my peer group, we're working through a book called True Professionalism. It was written by David Meister several years ago. And he talks in there about how the billable hours are for income, but the non-billable hours are for your future. And so how you use your non-billable time is probably one of the most important things. And I think Bob alluded to this as well, but the hours that I'm not delivering, what am I doing to either build new skills or build my network or reach out to past clients? Or, it's more than just doing the financials of the business and whatever. So I think that becomes really important. David Meister in this book talks about a profitability equation, and he mentions 4 things. So rate, margin, utilization, and leverage. So those 4 things, your rate is what do you charge, your margin, if you have costs and things on your jobs, what's left for you. The utilization, probably one of the most important metrics in consulting, of the total time that you have, how much of that time is billable, and of that quote-unquote billable time, how much are you actually getting paid for? That's another slippage factor. And then leverage is the other one. So to what extent can you develop a business where you're leveraging other people to help you do the work, you're selling, and so you're essentially making money while you sleep. So those kind of 4 factors, I think, go into a profitability model and all influence that question.
I'll just quickly say that, I mentioned earlier that I broke even for the first 10 years. It was because I was doing 2 things. I was investing heavily in business coaches and in courses and in learning. I was getting my own online digital degree in how do you run a successful consulting business. So I was spending a lot of money and a lot of time also on networking. Like nobody knew who I was in my new market. And so I was pouring that money back into those investments. So, and it was daily. You got to be out. And I always I tell our clients, if you're not in front of them, they're not thinking about you. That's right. Yeah, you're invisible. Like you think about you all the time, but nobody else is thinking about you unless you are face to face with them, or you are on their social media feed, or they're holding your book in their favorite chair. So you've got to be out there.
Yeah. You have your marketable skills, and that is an important asset. But at LEAP, we say your second most important asset is your network. And this is from somebody who had just a really good internal network at the company I was working at and 0 external network. And I have worked like crazy to build that network. But once you build it, there's a flip that happens at some point where work comes to you. And it takes a while, and you've got to be extraordinarily intentional, and you still have to stay in front of people because no matter how good your work was, they forget you very quickly. But there is a point where work starts to come to you, but it's your network that's going to get you there.
So, Brian, they just wanted you to clarify the 4 components that you mentioned once again. Can you go through those?
Yeah, sure. So the first one is rate. So what's your billing rate? The rate that you charge clients is often a retail rate, and then depending on the situation, it might be a little bit off of that for a particular project. The second one is margin. So oftentimes, a number of us will have projects where we'll have a team that'll work on the project, and so we'll pay subcontractors to do some of the work. So there's typically a total amount billed, and then the money that's paid to subcontractors, and then that difference is the margin. So that'd be the second one.
Well, and can I interject on the second? You will have business expenses, period. Like you may not have a lot. It's a low margin, high overhead business, but you will have some. And that comes out of your margin as well. Yeah, just saying.
Yeah, the third one was utilization. So that's just out of the total number of hours that you have available, how many of those are you billing? So typically in consulting firms, the younger people are 70 to 80% billable, sometimes higher. Those that also sell are typically maybe 40, 60% billable. Partners in big firms, probably less than that. So utilization, and then the fourth one is leverage. So to what extent can you take what you do and now extend that out and have more and more people helping you do it, and so you're just multiplying the effects of what you're able to do.
Or intellectual property. Yeah. Nicole, talk into leverage a minute. Yeah. Hit it again.
Oh, dear.
Well, I mean, leverage are things like online courses.
Yeah.
Or, like
Well, so, I look at assets is how I would talk. Yeah, okay, thank you. All right. So you caught me. I took a social media photo a minute ago because, So yeah, you have to be building assets, and that's the conversation we're having now. Actually, I have an integrator, I have an employee that is managing part of our business, and we're looking at what are the assets and how do we leverage them differently. And so, if you're not thinking in terms of the assets of books and video and your YouTube channel and your list and all of those things, that's something very seriously you got to be looking at. Is otherwise, I always talk about marketing and disappearing ink too, right? So a lot of people think, well, I'm posting every day. Well, you still don't have any assets other than you have a following. The posts themselves are disappearing within minutes. So you want to be thinking about creating a pool of assets and a library of your content that somebody else can refer to and go back to and find value in.
And that's one of those things that comes over time, too. Your network grows over time, your reputation grows over time, your ability to put your secret sauce and models and intellectual property grows over time. So if for those folks just thinking about it or starting, we just up the conversation to, kind of intermediate to advanced level.
Yeah, and I think the same thing goes for rate. You mentioned rate. That was one of the first mistakes I made, was opening my mouth too quickly. For the first phone call, when someone actually says, I'd like to hire you, what's your rate? One, you better have thought through that question before you open your mouth. And there are more than one way to set a rate, right? A lot of people do hourly, some people do packages, some people do monthly recurring revenue, retainers. There's all kinds of different revenue models to consider. Again, part of the upfront work that you really think about, that you need to think about upfront.
Well, and I would say, we'll go back to Katie a minute, is a really grand example of, I mentioned she came in under market, but you've had an amazing ability to keep ratcheting your rate up, experience, education, more certifications. I mean, you have gotten far more raises than any of your peers. Yeah.
Right, because every time my demand is too full, I know that's a sign, once again, like I have the experience, I have additional value, I've taken, the courses to be able to justify a higher rate for folks.
Yeah. So you can set your own pay raises.
Yeah.
If you do the work.
Yeah.
Do the work.
This has been the fastest hour I think ever spent, and we just are thankful for everybody that joined us. Would love to give the panelists one last opportunity to share their words of wisdom with our audience before we sign off today.
Oh, start with Nicole. No, doesn't matter. Yeah.
I just knew that I had to do it, and what would happen if I didn't? I couldn't sleep at night if I didn't do it. So, yeah.
I'd say do it, but do it with friends. Okay? I mean, just surround yourself with people that you may not even be comfortable with sometimes, that'll challenge you, that will tell you you're being stupid, that'll tell you that's a great idea, and then work those things out.
I'd speak into that and give a word of gratitude for Chris Taylor for setting me on this path, and to Purdue University for also setting me on this path. I would not be sitting here today had it not been for the consulting capstone course that I found myself in with Chris. And I am so grateful that this is the career that I stepped into, and I wish everyone would find something that they feel is passionate about stepping into too. So.
Well said.
Nothing? You got nothing?
That was as good as it gets right there.
I would say, and it's, it speaks into my passion, is it has been such a good career for me. The past 18 years have just been rich in so many ways. And that's why I'm passionate about helping other people get started, helping people that already started take their businesses to the next level with Apeiron. And it's an amazing career. It's been the perfect choice for me, and it's right for some people. And if it's right for you, reach out to some friends and put yourself out there a bit.
I'll add one more thing too. It's that if this is something you're considering, I hope you check out leaprightnow.biz/PAA, because we also have so many free resources there too. Chris and I do weekly consulting conversations where it's 5 minutes of kind of like this. We throw questions at each other and answer them. So you'll find a whole host of resources, and I also hope you reach out and connect to the fellow panelists here. I'm sure we'd all love to hear from you on LinkedIn.
And a big thank you to Leslie, to you.
Thank you,
and
yeah.
Yes.
No, yeah, you guys are what it's all about. We just appreciate your time, your wisdom, your courage. And hopefully, you moved some people to think about consulting as their next career choice. So thank you again. As I mentioned in the chat, we'll be sending this recording. Actually, the recording will be available on our Purdue for Life Foundation website. And I'll be doing a follow-up email with some additional information that was shared today. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next time.